welcome to another episode of the Catholic Talk Show. This is Ryan, Father Rich, and Ryan here with you again at Cast Media in Hollywood. And really excited about this topic. It's like 7 badass saints, man.
7 badass saints, huh?
Like
Praise
Chuck Norris type saints.
Yeah, man. We need more Chuck Norris type saints.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times you'll see like statues of saints and they're very effete. You know, you'll see very pale skin with blush on their cheeks, and you know, they don't look like somebody who can handle some of the rougher side of the of the ministry world.
Right.
And there's a lot of saints like that, and there's a lot of reason for tenderness and a lot of reason for that more loving side of, you know, Catholicism, but there's also the need for badasses.
Yeah, and some of those people were badasses,
Heck
but
yeah.
they just don't portray them
Especially at least their
like St.
statuary.
Peter, like St. Peter.
Right.
I mean, you know, his martyrdom,
Yeah.
you know, the suffering that he went through. Yeah, but you don't see that. You see
No.
him in the chair. And,
It's left to the artist to depict.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, unfortunately.
I'm sure there's some art that's out there like that, but it's just not as prevalent as
No.
Yeah, but I think most of the time when people,
there's kids, you know, coming in the church.
Just children.
you can't make them badass. There's children. The perception of saints a lot of time is very soft, very gentle, but they're not all like that. I mean, you know that, right, Father Rich?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, is your ministry all soft and gentle, or is
Oh,
there
definitely not.
some badassery going on?
Oh, of course. I mean,
nunchucks,
He's got staple guns.
staple guns. How do you use staple guns in ministry?
well, if people aren't paying attention during my homily, their eyelids. Oh man, could you imagine? Ouch.
What were we talking about?
No, we're talking about badasses.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think of Louis de Montfort. Are we going to talk about Louis, or can I talk about Louis?
You can talk about Louis. You can preference our badassery with Louis.
This is like my favorite badass story of Louis de Montfort, because everybody thinks, you know, Louis de Montfort, true devotion to Mary, you know, very devoted and, you know, loves the Blessed Mother and just super holy guy. But he came from a family of like bruisers and guys with bad tempers. You know, or St. Nicholas, for example. St. Nicholas was said to have a really bad temper too. But Louis de Montfort used to go out when he was a younger clergyman, and he would go around to the pubs, you know, like on a Saturday night, and guys would give him lip because they had a couple of liquid courage drinks, and they would start talking trash to Louis and making fun of him and irreverently, you know, calling him out. And dude, he'd beat the crap out of him. And then on top he'd be like, I'm going to see you at mass tomorrow. Like, I'm like, that is legit, man. You know?
There's a use for that in today's world.
Yeah.
Just, you know, go round them up in the bars, knock some teeth out, drag them to church. This is for This is going to hurt you a lot more than it's going to hurt me.
It's for your own good.
And guys respond to that type of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and I know for me, I mean, I've always kind of responded to more of like that masculine figure that is Christ, that he must have been a quite impressive, you know, masculine person, because look at this roughneck guys that he had around him, you know, like those apostles. They were hardened by trade, and they were fishermen and, you know, tax collector, you know, it's, they responded to Christ.
The funky bunch.
The funky bunch.
So who are some of these badass saints we're going to talk about?
So the first one we're going to talk about, hired a hooker every single night.
What? That's
No way,
That's
dude.
bad. That's
Come on.
bad.
That is bad.
Saint Vitalis of Gaza.
So did he like have this sexual addiction and then he converted later in his
Did
life?
they name Viagra after him? It sounds a little close.
Vitalis? No.
No. Vitalis, or what's the other one? Anyways.
I'm celibate. I really don't have to.
Yeah, right.
So
Why are you looking at me, Ryan?
Yeah, why are you asking me?
ask someone else. I don't know. So Saint Vitalis was a monk from Gaza, and at the age
You
of
keep on drinking your drink right in the microphone. Like,
Oh, sorry.
Ryan, that is
I'm thirsty.
That is not badass behavior.
yeah. Step away from the mic, G.
Go in the
doing
corner.
it.
Go in the
I'm
corner.
doing it.
Go in the corner and drink your
I'm
drink.
not doing that.
Get in the corner.
I'm not your dog.
My grandfather, who was a badass, he would always stick my nose in the corner. That was my punishment. At least the first round.
Okay, I'm done.
You done?
You
good.
good?
All right, you come out of the corner now, Ryan.
Saint Vitalis of Gaza. At 60 years old, this monk traveled to Alexandria. And what's the first thing that a good monk would do when they go to a new city?
Visit the library in Alexandria.
Pay for hookers?
First thing he did is he went there and he obtained the name of every prostitute in the entire city.
That was close.
So he went up to the pimp and he was like, "So pimp,
Sup, pimp?
Who's your top girls?
who's your top girls? Give me all the names of your girls."
Pretty much.
Wow.
So, with his black book in tow and the name of every prostitute in the city of Alexandria, his next step after doing that was to go find a job. And what he did is he hired himself out as a laborer, doing hard physical work, for a 60-year-old monk, lifting rocks, hauling garbage, breaking things, just like physical, hard, back-breaking labor.
Didn't he have a monastery that he had to report to and a superior?
A superior that was like, "Dude, what are you doing with all these hookers?"
Yeah.
Jesus things.
Well, we're going to keep our eye on you, Brother Shield.
So here's what he did next. He would take the money that he earned and hire a hooker every night. But instead of exploiting these women, he would teach them.
Oh, that's awesome.
He would teach them about Jesus, teach them that they had dignity, teach them that they were more than, more valuable than just something for an object of lust or for something
Transaction.
for a use, that they had inherent dignity beyond how they were being used.
Wow.
That's pretty badass.
That is pretty badass. And courageous. I mean, my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
And a lot of these women, after hearing this, they were able, they really saw the opportunity to convert, get out of that lifestyle, and go on to a lifestyle that had more dignity and led to better things.
Is he a patron saint of prostitutes?
Of John's?
Huh?
What?
Is he the patron saint of prostitutes?
No, I think St. Nick is.
Oh,
Is he really?
Yeah,
Huh.
you got a
I
bad.
think like Mary Magdalene or something.
I think she is too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although she kind of gets that rap.
And it's really not scripturally
Yeah,
sound.
yeah. No, St. Nicholas.
That Mary Magdalene wasn't a prostitute.
Right.
St. Nicholas is the patron saint of prostitutes because he gave money to the father of 3 young women who didn't have enough dowry to marry these girls off, so they're going to have to go into prostitution. And he paid for their dowry so they can get married instead of turning into a life of ill repute.
That's the alternative back then.
That's it. Get married or become a prostitute. There's 2 paths.
Well, that's pretty badass, man. What a great ministry to have. And I have to give a shout out to the daughters of Saint Catherine, in India, because I spent a little bit of time with them, just over a month or so. And these wonderful women would go out and collect girls that were in prostitution circles that were left for dead. And each house had about 50 girls. And they would be rehabilitated and taught a trade and educated all the way up to the point about 18, 19 years old. And then they were like social workers, and they would fit them into society with different jobs and get them on the trajectory of success. And, with the boys in the prostitution circles in Mumbai, a lot of them are used for different purposes after they're kind of, unfortunately, like used up in that circle and left broken. And they go into different labor roles. But girls are a lot of times left for dead. So a big shout out to the badass religious community, the Daughters of St. Catherine, because you're doing that same type of work in a beautiful way.
And they probably look at you and say, "You don't have to say badass."
Yeah, they probably would.
I mean,
there's a couple of sisters though that were like totally like, one of them wore sunglasses with her sari.
Cool.
Oh yeah, she was a cool girl.
Do you know what the biggest sex trafficking and prostitution event every year in America is?
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl. That's right.
Wow.
And there's a group of nuns from 11 different congregations of religious sisters who go to the Super Bowl every year. And instead of going to the game, they go and they look for signs of women who are, or whomever, women, men, children, who are being exploited in the sex trade. And they go out and try to rescue them.
That's outstanding.
So here's another badass saint, Saint Simon the Stylite. Ever hear of
Cool
him?
name, no.
The
Stylite.
Skylight?
Yes, the Skylight.
Sky Star.
No, Stylite.
Sounds like Skywalker.
Stylite.
Stylite. A stylite is a architectural pillar.
Oh. Named after him?
No.
No.
So there was he became very famous for his holiness and his sanctity, but he wanted to leave an ascetic life. He wanted to be left alone so he could, focus on God, but people were following him because, fame, had preceded him for his holiness. So what he did is, to get away from people, he went into a small city in modern day Syria, and there's some ancient ruins there, and there's an old broken pillar, very tall pillar, like 30 feet high. He climbed up to the top of it, built a platform, and vowed to live on top of that pillar the rest of his life so people could leave him alone.
Did he do it?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Wait a second. So he never left the pillar?
Never left the pillar.
Well, I'm sure everybody's thinking right now, well, how did he use the bathroom?
Have you ever, just
don't stand
when,
in the
when
pillar.
he, when he was hungry, people would bring him food. When he had to go, he would go.
It would get a little stinky there.
Look out below.
Well, he had 30 feet of poop area to work with before it got up to him, so.
Oh my gosh.
And, he's probably regular like Shield over here. Don't go near the pillar at 5:35 a.m.
There's like a bell.
after his morning cup of coffee. Yeah. Bong.
Oh my gosh, dude. Terrible.
So yeah, he lived up there to be left alone, and the local kids would they would bring him food, and he lived off of bread and goat's milk, which probably didn't probably didn't help his pooping situation much.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but he lived up there the rest of his life. The local bishops, they begged him to come down. They're like, "We get it, you're holy. Come down. Let's
we get it. All
we
right,
got it, pal. Come down off of the column.
holier than thou."
hold an umbrella." Yeah, and he spent 37 years on the pillar.
Holding an umbrella. You should have seen Sheila. He was holding an umbrella when they came to get him. I just wanted to let all the audience know.
Yeah, especially the listeners that aren't watching the video.
Yeah.
Well,
You're missing some money moments.
that's
here.
it. So yeah, lived up to 37 years. Then one morning they went up to feed him, and he was just slumped over, and he's dead. And that was it.
That's truly badass.
It is, man.
That takes a lot of badassery to sit in one spot for 37 years, eating goat's milk and bread for Jesus.
He is the true original badass. Oh
Gosh, man.
Because they were up there like, damn, man, that guy's got a badass.
And every time. No, but seriously, can you imagine
I have been imagining, yes.
just seeing him when you're 5 and then seeing him when you're 25 and being
Guy's
like,
still up there.
when are you going to come down?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like his mother came to see him, and he's like, "Go away. Like if we're perfected enough, I'll see you in heaven. I don't need to see you here. Let's get perfect, and if you're perfect and I'm perfect, we'll see each other in heaven."
No. It was a calling.
There were a number of people that would spend, penitential periods of time throughout history on top of pillars.
And those are called stylites.
Yeah, stylites. So that's fantastic.
What?
I've never knew that.
Yeah, a person
That's
who
the thing.
The more you know.
Star with glitter.
Why don't we have those commercials anymore?
we don't need to know anything anymore.
We know everything.
We have a computer attached to our brain.
Yeah,
The more you know. Called Google.
called the Googles.
Everything at your fingertips.
So that's a thing.
That's the thing. I think that might be your calling, Ryan.
No, I'm still processing it right now.
Living on top of a pole for 37 years, peeing in the wind, eating goat's milk, man.
That was brought to you by people that brave through your
Poop mound.
37-year-old. No, I'm serious, guys. I'm just thinking about that.
I know.
I'm very sanitary.
Why we have a story about a saint and it immediately goes to poop, dude? Why?
Yeah.
37 years, guys. It's not. He didn't go on a camping trip. I'm just saying. Anyways, I don't want to get fixated on that, but something.
All right, let's go out of this.
I'll send up some wipes for you, some Cottonelle wipes. God bless America.
That's not going to help the situation on the ground, though.
Oh, badass saints.
This is gonna bother me until I go and really research this thoroughly, and then
He's
if
going to
it
be in
bothers
Google.
me more.
How
then
did
I'm
Saint
just-
Simon poop?
It was a large Stylite. There was a commode up there.
Okay, good. But
Or maybe
anyways,
the column was hollowed out.
and went to a vast.
I love how we just try to figure out the
Ever
the sanitation.
expanding. Yeah, I'm sanitary.
Yeah.
You guys go right for the practical aspects of
Absolutely.
living on a Stylite.
God
Eating
bless
and
him.
pooping.
God bless him.
That's
I'm
it.
sure a lot of people were saved by his sacrifice and
Oh yeah.
brought to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And God
Once
knows
they
what
got-
type of
once they got past that. I'm sorry. Y'all are not helping me get through this.
Are you crying?
Finally, Delacroix
He's
is
laughing
crying.
so hard he's crying.
God could call me to this.
Oh, it's going to be such divine justice when you get called to be a Stylite. All right, next badass saint. This was called the Soldier Saint, Saint John of Capistrano.
Oh yeah.
You ever hear of him?
You okay?
I was just thinking we could do a whole show on that. Oh, God.
Oy.
I'm
Oy
sorry.
vey.
So what were you going to get you like?
Need a break.
All right.
John Capistrano,
John of Capistrano.
not Juan
Yeah. Same one.
Capistrano from here
Yeah.
Yeah.
in California.
The mission. It was named after him.
San Juan Capistrano,
Okay.
where the swallows.
Beautiful place.
Yeah, Franciscan friar.
Yep.
So he was known as the Soldier Saint. So he was, he was very famous for his preaching and for his wisdom. But then at 70 years old, Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Empire. And they were pushing beyond Asia Minor into the Balkans. And Pope Calixtus III sent John, who was 70 years old, to preach a crusade against the Turks who were invading. They said, "You're such a good preacher. Go and try to convince people to defend Europe against this invasion."
He did this. Wait. Before he went to California, the dates don't match.
No. He never went to California. He was
And the
named
church
after him.
was named after him because
Gotcha.
all of these churches were
Saint
founded
Ryan,
by
Saint Francis.
Franciscans.
Saint Francis
Gotcha.
was never in San Francisco.
Hey,
That's not how it works.
I'm not that dumb.
Well, I mean. So anyway,
Yeah, this is like 15th century.
Gotcha.
He died in 1456.
Yep.
And a lot of these churches were, like late 1800s.
Erected in their memory.
Yeah, and a lot of
Consecrated to them. Yeah. Okay.
so at 70 years old, after preaching the crusade and saying, okay, look, everyone, there's this invasion coming. You need to defend, Europe against this invasion of the Ottomans. And he was very successful in his preaching, but he didn't stop there. He took a suit of armor, put it over his Franciscan robes, and went into battle himself at 70 years old.
Wow.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that turn out?
He was a badass.
Yeah, I mean, he's in our show.
Yeah. So he actually led his own contingent into battle on horse in Franciscan
Wow.
robes with armor on, and he won. They won the
That's
battle.
hardcore.
The Battle of Belgrade.
That's hardcore.
That's what I'm about, man.
Yeah.
That's the way I want to go out.
Well, he didn't go out.
I know, but like that, I mean, if ever things pop off,
Right.
where in a
You want a
in
horse
holy war, man. I want
and
a horse,
some body armor,
some armor,
in a
AR-15 or something, and
yeah. You throw in a couple of those. You'll probably need
a
one.
helicopter.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. So, but that battle really helped to prevent the expansion of the Ottoman Empire into Europe.
Wow,
Wow.
interesting.
Badass.
Next
It is.
bad. Yeah, it is. That's some Chuck Norris stuff right there.
You know what he died of though?
What?
So he lived to 70 in a terrible time, fought battles at 70 years old, and he died of plague from poor sanitation.
And we're back to it.
We're right there.
No comment.
See, sanitation's important, Ryan.
Next saint, please.
Well,
How many we doing? 10 or something? How many have we done?
as many as I want, Ryan.
Okay.
Sheila is in control.
All right, so here's another soldier saint, and I think it's really important. You do not need to be a male to be a badass. That is not at all what badassery is about.
That's right.
And our next badass saint is
Props to the badass ladies. Oh, we got
Saint
a mama at her. Yeah.
of Arc.
yeah.
Look at that.
Beautiful.
How do you
Awesome.
feel about being a badass?
She's just one single nod.
That's all she needs right there.
She doesn't
Yeah.
need to shake her head. She doesn't need to give you affirmation. She
she
does it
doesn't.
on her own.
Yeah.
Look at that, man. That's an intense look.
Yeah.
Now, we all know the story of St. Joan of Arc,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yep.
How awesome.
You know, she was a 14, 15-year-old girl called by God to lead the French army to defeat the English. That doesn't even sound like something that could possibly ever happen. I mean,
Like a David and Goliath story.
a 14-year-old nobody, not a noble, convinces armies to be led by her and wins. I mean, guys, that doesn't make sense in history. It doesn't. That is such an outlier in the way history works.
And it takes
Yeah.
David and Goliath to the next level, like beyond.
Right.
Right? Fascinating.
Yep.
Yeah, and her
absolutely
death
fascinating.
was.
What I
know.
love about St. Joan of Arc is from the perspective of Mark Twain, this renowned cynic, right? Who was raised Catholic himself, but he's a cynical guy, you know, and he was, you know, one of the greatest satirical writers of all time. And here he is, his greatest work that he attributes to his whole life was a book about Joan of Arc. Spent over 12 years researching, 2 years writing, and he gave his whole life. And as you're reading through this book, Ignatius Press published it. You should definitely check it out if you haven't read it. It is so powerful because as you're reading through the life of Joan of Arc, you're experiencing firsthand a love affair that Mark Twain had because of how powerful this woman was in the
Wow.
history of the world. And he's just totally amazed at her life. He spent a greater majority of his life researching her. It's just fascinating.
I mean, really, literally astounded by the fact that something like that could actually happen.
Yeah.
It makes no logical sense to me. I can think of no other story that's even remotely like it in all of history.
Close, yeah.
One of the top badass saints.
Absolutely.
For sure.
For sure. Here's another
If not
badass
the
saint.
top.
St. Lawrence.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
Bring
maybe
it.
the
Bring
most
it.
like badass line ever.
Yeah.
Like Schwarzenegger couldn't deliver this line. So St. Lawrence was the deacon of Rome.
Yeah.
And as part of the persecutions, he was sentenced to be executed for being a Christian by being burnt alive on a grill.
Basically a grill.
Right.
Yeah.
And as he was burning and being executed in a horrible, horrible way, I burned my finger on hot coffee and I bemoan my life and my existence. And he's laying on this thing just on fire with hot irons, and he goes, You want to flip me over? I'm done on this side.
I'm done on this side. That's just like taunting.
Brilliant.
That is so.
It's so brilliant.
That's so badass.
Yeah.
You know, he's the patron saint of
Grilling?
cooks.
Yeah.
No, of cooks.
Yeah.
For that, because he was cooked alive on a
He
grill.
knows exactly when to flip it over.
perfect timing.
It's like done on this side.
Flip the
Ding.
burger.
That's truly amazing that somebody can have that much. I mean, the pain, right? And still have the wherewithal to, just
Be a badass.
sit in their face.
Yeah. No, it wasn't spit in their face. It was just it was a taunting that their cruelty and their inhuman behavior didn't have power over him because
Yeah.
only Christ mattered to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love that story.
Badass.
All right, here's another badass saint. Saint Moses the Black.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he was like a really big dude, right?
He was legendary for how big he was. He's like Kimbo Slice, just big, bad dude, right? Like the kind of guy you're like, he walks up to you and says, "Give me your lunch." You give him your lunch, right?
You know that Moses Black is one bad mother.
Shut your mouth.
I'm only talking about Moses Black.
So he was a criminal, and he was basically just terrorizing Egypt, the Nile Valley. He was just going around and kicking ass, breaking things, stealing things, robbing people, just being a total just villain, right?
what a
I mean,
villain.
and what are you going to do? He's like 6'9", 400 pounds. You can't do anything to him, right?
Kimbo Slice.
Right. But eventually they sent the authorities sent armies, like battalions after him. They're like, dude, we got to get this renegade out of here. This guy's causing way too much shit to go down, right? So they send a big group after to get him, and as they were pursuing him, he went and tried to hide in a monastery. And monasteries had the right of sanctuary. You know what sanctuary is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to explain it for people?
It's just calling to mind like the safety that that they are safe from even civil power.
Right. So I don't know if sanctuary really still applies now
No,
in some
I don't think
countries,
so.
but
Perhaps.
But it used to be that if you were under,
It's like a consulate.
pretty much, like a consulate, you couldn't be arrested inside of a church,
Yeah.
no matter what you did. So he went into the monastery and basically was looking for sanctuary. And he was in there so long, he eventually really became enamored and just fell in love with the monastic way of life and never left the monastery again and became a great monk and actually ended up becoming the abbot of.
What?
Yeah.
He became the abbot?
Fabulous,
Yep.
man.
Wow.
That is such a great story. Moses the Black. I was in a Dick's Sporting Goods in Boynton Beach years ago when Kimbo Slice was fighting, and I'm walking out, and this guy comes up behind me in line, and I look at him. This guy's wearing a wife beater, huge, big black guy. I'm like, dude, you look like Kimbo Slice, right? And he had these gold teeth and stuff, and he looks at me, he's like, I don't know if that's supposed to be a compliment. I'm like looking up. It was a compliment, man. Like I'm like totally complimenting you.
Trust me, everything people say to you is a compliment.
And if it isn't, it should be.
It should be.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that they said about him that written about him that so sudden a conversion from vice to virtue was never before witnessed, nor such rapid attainments in monastical philosophy. So he went there, and his whole life had been just chaos and madness. But when he got within the monastic walls, he was really allowed to flourish more than just his body. It was proven that his mind was beyond parallel too, and he was just absolutely a brilliant theologian and brilliant in prayer and brilliant in leadership. So it gave him a venue to really fully explore who he was more than just a bruiser and a brawler.
What a great story. And when we're exposed to the divine mysteries, it truly has an effect on us. Look at our reversion stories and what's happened in our lives. This has happened in countless men and women's lives throughout history. And we're talking about a few of the greatest, most badass saints that had these incredible journeys, exposed to the world and did not back down from anything that they confronted.
Yeah.
And some of that transformation, like Moses the Black,
Strong
happened
faith.
inside of him, that war inside of him.
Strong faith.
Yeah.
So his death is actually really fitting and really poetic and really, really beautiful as well. So when he was 75 years old, he's an old man now, and
Still abbot.
still abbot. I'm sure he was still giant, but he's old and twisted, and he doesn't,
Swing like
he doesn't swing like he used to. A group of raving Berbers came to destroy the monastery. That was really common that people would attack monasteries because they're rich, and all the monks said, well, let's get swords and let's try to defend the monastery. And he said no. So he basically held off the Berbers while everyone else escaped, and he said he wanted to stay behind and hold them off, but without fighting, because he thought that it was just that since he had lived by the sword, that ultimately he would die by the sword. So he martyred himself in defense of the other monks so they can escape, and faced his own death in that way.
That would make a great movie.
That would make a great movie.
And he probably legitimately had the idea that he was going to defend the place.
No, he forbade anyone to use any violence.
Oh, okay. He
I mean,
wasn't
he
like
was- no,
swinging
he-
the sword.
No,
and-
he was
okay.
completely converted at that time and completely
Well,
went past all violence.
then.
Right?
Yeah,
All right. So
I'm seeing a movie.
I like it. Oh,
this one.
this one's a movie.
Now, this is definitely a movie. This last one here, guys,
All right.
buckle up because this is incredible.
Now this is another female badass saint, Saint Kietiera.
Kietiera.
So we talked about her last night, and everyone.
Yeah. I didn't believe you.
Yeah,
I
he
had
did
to
it.
actually.
Yeah, we were all
look this up.
researching online. Like, what?
He's like, you lie, Brian Shield. You sit on a throne of lies.
You're making this up.
You sit on a stylite of lies.
And poop.
And poop. Poops of lies.
Oh.
So St. Kietiera.
Sorry, ladies.
St. Kietiera was one of 9 non-tuplets. Non-tuplets are like
Instead of twins.
twins
9.
or triplets. There's 9. There's
Which I've never heard of in my life until last night.
right. So her parents were pagans, and the mother was very kind of upset. She kind of felt she was a noble woman. She's like, I gave birth to a litter. Like, people are going to look at me like a beast of burden, and not even one of these 9 useless little things are a son. So she ordered her attendant to take these babies out and drown them like puppies in the river. But her attendant, her servant, was actually secretly a Christian and wouldn't do it. So she took these 9 babies to a local monk who took them in, adopted them, and raised them as Christians.
Wow.
Instead of being drowned, they were baptized.
That's right.
And then they became absolutely powerful witnesses.
All of them.
All of them.
Not
a powerful force.
not just this saint, but we're going to talk about her.
So according to legend, the name of the 9 were Eumelia, Liberata, Gemma, Ginebra, Germana, Basilia, Marina, Vittoria, and Kietiera.
Marina?
Marina, yeah.
Oh, wow. I got to tell my friend Marina.
That's like you talking about your cousins. All your Italian cousins. There's Germana, Basilia, Marina, Vittorio, Kietiera.
Vittoria.
And then there's Larry Lanny.
Larry Lanny. With all of his...
Carol Abruciano.
So anyway, so the monk raises these 9 sisters, and they were all baptized. They all became very dedicated to Our Lady. But then a persecution broke out, and they were imprisoning all the Christians in the area.
And this was in Roman times, like 300, 400 AD.
I think this was
something.
in Roman Gaul. So like France or maybe Portugal, maybe Hispania.
Yeah.
So somewhere not in Italy, but in the Roman Empire, in the farther ends of it. And they all had they were persecuting Christians, and they rounded everyone up, including these 9 sisters, and they put them in a prison. But these 9 were badasses. They were like the Sand Vipers, man. They were like a gang of badass Catholic saint women, right? And they broke out. And they went to the hills and created like a guerrilla army. And then they would go and they would break out other Christians. They'd find other prisons and they would break them out of there. And they would release these Christians. Then they'd create like a resistance army in the hills.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm totally seeing movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I mean, eventually they captured them, and they offered her a choice of either marrying a pagan or being decapitated. And they all chose to be decapitated instead of
All 9.
instead of being forced into a marriage with a pagan.
Wow.
It's pretty badass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's a movie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to mess with that force.
Could you imagine being married to her?
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
And all of your 8 sisters-in-law.
you could never argue with her.
Yeah. You wouldn't want it to escalate.
No.
Let's just say that. She'd lay the smackdown on you.
So there's
And
bad.
then her 8 other sisters are going to come after you too.
Yeah, right?
They're gonna be on the phone. Ryan's so terrible. 8 times. Yeah, I know he's terrible. He's terrible. Yeah, I don't like him. It's an 8-way phone
They're
call.
all twins, you know?
Oh yeah, man.
They're all like, like
rough.
twins, right?
All right,
Man.
those are badass saints.
Yeah.
There's a lot more badass saints, but
We
those
could
are the ones
probably do
chose.
another show on that.
We can. But do you know what else we can do?
The Inquisition.
We could prove that you're not a badass theologically, and we're gonna inquisit you.
Bring it.
You ready?
I'm ready. I'm all inspired by all these badass saints.
I know, me too.
Okay.
Pretty awesome.
You have a Sunday obligation.
Okay.
What does that mean?
That you have an obligation before God and the community and the faithful. That's something that you have to, and I'm not stalling, but that's something you have to remember, is that it's not just a responsibility that you have to God, but it's also a responsibility that you have to your neighbor to show up to Mass
Okay.
on Sunday. to listen attentively to the scriptures.
Now this question was actually sent in to us by a listener.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sent in to us by a listener on.
Well, that's softening my heart. And if it was coming from you, I'd be like,
no, this is venomous. This is venomous. He's shooting venom.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
He's giving you no mercy.
Oh, Lord. All right, forget it. I'm back to the badass mode.
Oh, yeah.
So
He had him on his heels.
when people are in space,
Okay.
they're circling the Earth multiple times in a day.
Yeah. What day is it on the moon or something?
No. When does Sunday obligation start when you're in space? When you're not tied to any particular time zone.
Mm.
And what,
I think it's unfair to put astrological.
That's a great question, though. I do like that question. And this is exactly what I am going to say, because that would be left up to the Bishop of the Moon. So, left to the
he's
Bishop
pulling
of
out the
Moon,
guns.
Bishop Noonan
Wow.
would establish
A norm.
a norm for the participation of the faithful in space to experience and celebrate that liturgy for Sunday at the particular time made by Bishop Noonan, the Bishop of the Moon.
The Bishop of the Noon.
Yeah.
Bishop of the Noon. And
The Bishop.
I've got to say this. And so it was my first
Bishop
time celebrating
Noonan.
Mass in Orlando. And there were a couple of brothers from Orlando that we would say like Bishop Nooney or Noonie, because it was an affectionate term. He was like a loving bishop, and it was like Bishop Noonie. So I'm sitting there celebrating Mass, and as you know, in the Eucharistic prayer, you pray for Pope Francis and the bishop of the particular diocese, the ordinary of the diocese that you're in. So it was Bishop Noonan, and I couldn't remember his first name, John, our bishop, right? So I'm like, and Noonie or Bishop? Noonie or Bishop? And I'm like, oh,
no.
Lord, have mercy. And now I'm just putting this out there. Bishop Noonan, I love you, man. No disrespect.
And he's sorry.
And I'm so sorry.
Love you, Noonie.
I love you, Noonie. And we love all of you for joining us on the Catholic Talk Show. This has been an awesome episode. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that question was sent in by Peter Smallbone on Twitter. So I just,
Dude, Peter,
Shout out.
bro, that was an awesome question. Keep them coming.
yeah. So make sure you go to CatholicTalkShow.com so you can subscribe to us and learn more about all the episodes that we have. And make sure you're following us. Make sure you are leaving reviews. It helps us get the show out to more people and to more Noonies.
Subscribe.
Badass.
Badass.
We out.
Peace.